with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Carl Lindskoog, assistant professor of history at Raritan Valley Community College, author of Detain and Punish, Haitian Refugees and the World's Largest Immigration Detention System. Also on the program today, Man Cinema continue hacking away at the Build Back Better plan. Meanwhile, Republicans in the Senate will, of course, block the voting rights bill, which can now pass only if the Democrats reform the filibuster. The House Rules Committee is voting at the moment to push Steve Bannon in criminal contempt to the full House for a vote. Also, hearing today for Rahm Emanuel's nomination as ambassador to Japan on the 7th anniversary of the killing of Laquan McDonald, a killing Rahm Emanuel attempted at least for several years successfully to cover up when he was mayor of Chicago. The FDA makes its final proposal for over-the-counter hearing aids, which could dramatically reduce the costs of hearing aids for millions of Americans. New York City mandates vaccine for all city workers, including cops. If you don't get a vaccine, you take an unpaid vacation.
Sorry.
Jair Bolsonaro, accused of crimes against humanity in his COVID response by a Brazilian congressional panel. And by January, over 70 million Social Security beneficiaries are going to see the largest bump to their benefits in decades. All this and more on today's Majority Report. We should say that bump is going to be a one-time COLA cost of living increase. Which, just to remind you, as to how far we came, Joe Biden had spearheaded the attempt to cut the cost of living increases for seniors. Obviously, it's seniors are eligible for Social Security. Back during the Obama administration, in fact, did a end run around then Majority Leader of the Senate, Harry Reid, to try and get that deal done and talk about what comes around goes around. Right, Emma Vigeland, who's here today?
Right, I am here today. Shocking, I know, but I'm here.
I mean, this may be a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that Joe Biden's pathological desire to believe that the Republican Party was a negotiating partner, I guess maybe 7-8 years ago, perpetuated a lie and a misunderstanding about the Republican Party. And frankly, the so-called moderates, conservative Democrats, that in many respects he fell prey to in the first 10 months of his administration. I think when the history of this Build Back Better bill which I think by the time we're done with it is going to be, slightly repair some things in a less than fully adequate situation. I don't know if they'll be able to fit that all in the bill.
Build back the bare minimum.
Build back the bare minimum, like maybe not even, I don't know.
And probably not the climate because of Manchin. Manchin's going to get rich.
I believe when the history of this failure to capitalize on the moment comes, because let's be honest, if we're talking about a $1.9 trillion bill over the course of 10 years, I mean, we're talking about something that's not even, what is it, a quarter of our annual commitment to the military? Yep. I mean, it's just simply not.
And now they're talking about the child tax credit only being extended for a year or 2 years, which means, say the Democrats lose the Senate or the House, which is very likely, that's gone, and then they get to own that in an election year. Great move.
This ends up being a political liability.
Right.
But I think when the history of this bill is written, if it's even large enough to be worth anybody's time, frankly, to write about it, the failure to capitalize on the momentum following the COVID relief bill and Biden's, again, pathological desire to appear bipartisan when he first invited the Republicans in to negotiate with him and then allowed for space for Kyrsten Sinema and Rob Portman to do their bipartisan bill. I mean, we have seen how much those Republicans and conservative Democrats want that infrastructure bill, the so-called bipartisan one, because it has a lot of stuff that basically are just sort of build back, fill up the potholes, that type of stuff. And
they kept progressives out of that entire negotiation process on purpose. And now they're like, yeah, but we get to have a say, and not just a say, we get to dominate the bill that we were going to.
The point is, if you do not allow that to happen, if you do not allow for the space for the Republicans to come in and try and negotiate it and for this bipartisan group to negotiate it, you then roll that into this bill and it becomes one bill and you push it through right after the COVID relief. There's not as much time for forces to amass to fight against it, all of the moneyed forces. There is more interest by more members of the Senate to pass this bill because it has the goodies they can't do without. I think that, it's very hard to prove the counterfactual, but I really do think that we're going to be looking back on that moment as the time that the Build Back Better bill was basically DOA, not to get all BBB, DOA.
Right. Thank you, C-3PO.
I was going to say WYD.
Right.
What are you going to do?
SMD.
Shake my damn. What?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Okay. Well, just whatever on that one. All right. Well, that's the show for today.
Hello.
Here is Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman sitting down with John Berman. There's only so much any members of the House can do at this point, right? I mean, they passed this bill, or I should say, prepared to pass the entire $3.5 trillion bill. And they don't have any leverage. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman have no leverage with Sinema or Manchin. I guess to some extent, one could argue that they have some leverage with Chuck Schumer, who has failed to do anything other than act as a concierge for the members of the Senate. Failed insofar as seemed to be the only person he trusted in the entire Democratic Party, with the knowledge that Joe Manchin was saying $1.5 trillion. I mean, what if the forces that were in favor of a larger bill were aware 4 months ago that Joe Manchin had said $1.5 trillion.
Yeah, why not just sit on it, though, and not tell anybody about it, Chuck Schumer?
Maybe they could, Bernie Sanders could have been working on that 4 months ago.
Yeah, maybe he didn't have to take out an op-ed in the West Virginia paper to shame Manchin at the 11th hour as these cuts have already happened.
Exactly.
Schumer has let these two members of his caucus dominate, and he's just let the inmates run the asylum to be clear,
the opponents of this bill knew what they were attacking 4 or 5 months ago, but the proponents of this bill did not know what they were fighting against.
Yes.
And that is because Chuck Schumer decided, for whatever reason, to sit on that information. I don't even know if Nancy Pelosi knew
She didn't, and I mean, there was some reporting that she was pissed about it.
I don't blame her. I would be.
She does a better job than he does in this respect.
Even if you know in July that this isn't going anywhere, why do you let the Democrats go out and embarrass themselves? Because regardless of what you get now, it's going to look like failure. On some level, it is going to failure from a policy standpoint. I'm just talking from a political standpoint. Chuck Schumer is now responsible for the magnification of the failure of the Democrats. I'm not sure that, frankly, they could have passed the entire bill or none of the bill, and it would have made an electoral difference in and of itself in terms of the benefits. But certainly, going into 2022, this is going to look like a failure for the Democrats. And Chuck Schumer owns at least that part of it by denying full information to all the stakeholders.
Because he thought that he could get him out of that position and didn't want to publicize it. I don't even know what the play was.
I think that Schumer perceives himself as a concierge for the Senate. And so what he was doing was sort of like a bag check. He took it and put it into the cloakroom and hung it on the thing and just said to Joe Manchin, whenever you're ready, you come and tell me and I will go find it for you. And all you have to do is give me a little tip.
Oh, well, that's I guess the role of the Senate Majority Leader, I guess, these days.
Here is Representative Cori Bush and Representative Jamal Bowman. Bush, of course, from St. Louis, and Bowman from New York, on CNN's New Day with John Berman.
The expectation is we will give you crumbs and expect you to be happy. What we're saying is I didn't come to Congress to continue to give crumbs to my community. St. Louis continues to get crumbs, and we keep being number one for homicide, number one or number two for homicides, number one for police murder, number one for the murder of children. We keep having those issues. We keep having issues with black children being 10 times as likely to go to the hospital in emergency room for asthma than white children. How do we fix those things? You have to put the money there. And so I didn't come to Congress to sit back and accept those crumbs. Give my folks the meal. And that is why we're here, to push that.
No, don't ask us why aren't we willing to compromise. Ask Joe Manchin, yes. Is he okay with violence in our communities continuing, public housing falling apart, black and brown people disproportionately dying from COVID, the climate crisis? Ask him to go bigger instead of asking us to go smaller.
To be clear, we're asking every member where they're going to go and where the possible agreements can be reached. Paul Begala was on earlier today and talked about progress versus perfection.
That's not even, but we're talking about a package that is not even perfection.
3.5 trillion was the compromise.
Right, that was the compromise. This is not perfection.
President Biden came in at 6 trillion.
Again, I'm making the argument that Joe Manchin is making here, because he's not sitting here, but he would say 1.5 trillion isn't crumbs.
Tell Joe Manchin to come to my district.
That's right.
Tell him to come to my district. Tell him to meet with me, and I'll take him to see what happens when you give a little of something, and you expect people to live off of that. Because what'll happen is that 1.5 trillion or whatever it turns out to be that he wants, it'll be, we did something for you.
Mm-hmm. We spend 7.6 trillion on the military alone every 10 years.
Yes.
And it's okay for us to spend that money. No one bats an eye, but we're looking to spend 3.5 over 10 years. That most of it is paid for on a bottom-up economy to target those most vulnerable. And we have a problem with that. Black and brown people, black and brown women, indigenous people, poor people. We always have to wait. You always ask, not you, the government always ask us to kick the can down the road for the most vulnerable. And people, to me, that's unacceptable.
That, I mean, the Bowman brings up the real point there. Yeah. I mean, if you're saying $1.5 trillion is not crumbs, my response is 7.5 trillion in military spending. And let's be clear. I don't know that we've had a year, at least in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, where that number hasn't gone up.
Yeah.
They keep getting a bump. I mean, this year, Congress gave the Pentagon more than they asked for.
Yeah, they do that every year. Oh, here's a little sweetener, a little cherry on top while we got to cut for
this year. It's going to be $770 billion. Next year, it's probably going to be closer to $800 billion. By the time you get 10 years out, you could be talking about another $100 billion, functionally $1 trillion over the course of 10 years.
Which is half of what we would be spending on that year with this current proposal for Build Back Better, $190 billion. That's how you reframe it. Like Bowman made the key point there. But Corey punches back. Together, they're just, a great tandem. And you saw how Berman was just holding up the last...
It's not me.
I'm just playing the role of Joe Manchin. It's definitely not my position. And they also never ever substantively talk about what is in that top line number and what is getting cut. 1.9 trillion sounds big, right? Okay, that satiates the audience. What are the parts that are getting done away with? Are we going to talk about what those cuts mean? Or are we just going to be like, big number, smaller number, compromise? That's not politics. We're talking about policies that affect people's lives. I don't care about the number if it's just garbage in it, which is pretty much what the bipartisan infrastructure package contains. So let's talk about the policies within these structures and not just, the surface level figure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be speaking to Carl Lindskoog, assistant professor of history at Raritan Valley Community College, author of Detain and Punish, Haitian Refugees and the World's Largest Immigration Detention System. Folks, today's program sponsored by one of our favorite sponsors. I want to bring these guys down to Boston, actually. It's a little bit of a hike from Burlington, but it's not too much. Of course, I'm speaking of Sunset Lake Sebede.com. Yes, sunsetlakesebede.com. They've got an amazing array of smokables, keefs, smalls, pre-rolls. They've got fudge, coffee, gummies. They've got salves with arnica. They've got lotion, like, what do you call it? Skin lotion with Sebede.
That is good skin lotion.
Tincture. All of their products are tested by third parties. They practice regenerative farming, integrated pest management, 100% organic fertilizer. They also have great business practices, $15 minimum wage, but they're mostly an employee-owned company. I can't say enough about both their business practices, their being a movement partner, very supportive of, we've talked about this, of the money that we raise for Afghan refugees and for the nurses in Worcester and programs in and around Burlington. Just all around great folks up there. But the bottom line is people love their product. We get emails on a regular basis thanking us. I will admit, and Matt was too, skeptics. In the past, I had tried Sebede and not been terribly impressed. But now it is extremely helpful in terms of sleeping for me. It's also, I use it a little recreationally at times. And frankly, there are days when the kids, the kids are a little bit difficult. So I will, have a little tincture maybe during the day, or a little fudge. Yeah. And they're giving you 20% off with their coupon code LEFTISBEST. I know Matt uses this keef and mixes it with some other stuff and whatever.
Good keef, got an ounce of it.
sunsetlakesebede.com, 20% off. Use the code LEFTISBEST, all one word. You will not regret it, folks. I promise you. So much of their business is return customers, and it makes total sense. All right. Now, speaking of Boston, we made the announcement yesterday, right? Was it yesterday?
Yes.
We are going to be doing a live show in Boston, Massachusetts on January 16th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So the people who are traveling in can make it there and back and this and that. We're going to be live in Boston. The whole crew is going to be there. We're going to have some guests. Haven't quite decided on whom yet. And tickets are on sale now at the famed Wilbur Theater. When I've told my buddies from Boston we're going to be at the Wilbur, they're like, what? They're like, what? You going to the Wilbur? Seriously? Holy shit. Dude, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious.
It is sort of adequately grandiose for the show, I think.
Super grandiose. Are you kidding me? Who do you think you are? Like that guy who plays like Itzhak Perlman? Here is the pre-sale code. If you are a member of this program, you will hear the pre-sale code when I say it. If you have signed up for the AM Quickie newsletter, which you go to majority.fm, go all the way down to the bottom, put your email in, you will get it tomorrow morning. Here it is. The code is MR.
Complicated.
The code is MR.
People were wondering if this was a Q drop the other day.
Oh, is that right? And now, if you're not a member, you won't have heard that because Matt will take it out.
Special technology.
Oh, wow.
Or he'll put some type of thing there. So become a member. Otherwise, wait till Friday and, look.
Maybe it'll be sold out.
Chances are it's not going to be sold out by Friday.
That's a great way to drive membership.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, the Wilbur's a big theater, but I think it's, I'm not sure if the seating is specific seating, but also, do you really want to risk it?
How big is it?
It's pretty big. Dude, this is like where you go if you're...
Google image it.
Yeah, if you're it's the Wilbur Theater.
Oh, no.
Are you kidding? It's a huge deal. That place is fancy.
I'm worried.
Yeah, you should be. All right. So check that out, folks. And we will put the link in the description.
It is really big.
And if you are a member, you can find the code in the member post from today. All right. I want to welcome to the program Carl Lindskoog, assistant professor of history at Raritan Valley Community College, author of Detain and Punish, Haitian Refugees in the World's Largest Immigration Detention System. Carl, thanks for joining us. I'm here with Emma Vigeland.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, very much in the news right now in terms of Haitian immigration in particular. I mean, of course, this was also an issue during the Trump years. I mean, and frankly, it's been a big issue in this country for decades now. And we have talked at some length on this program about America's relationship with Haiti for multiple centuries now. But your book makes the case that in many ways, our current immigration system is a function of the way that we view specifically Haitian immigrants, that it was built up around a response to Haitian immigration. And then, of course, it gets applied to immigrants, or not all immigrants, but some immigrants or a lot of immigrants sort of writ large. When does that story begin?
Well, as you say, it's a function and it's an outgrowth of a much longer history between the United States and Haiti, and it stems from the Haitian Revolution. But more recently, it really begins in the 1970s when the first so-called Haitian boat people, Haitian asylum seekers coming by boat to the United States, start arriving on American shores and asking for security and asylum. It's that point when the US government implements a policy to try to deter them from coming and to keep them out of American communities. It starts putting them in jails and prisons and applying a blanket denial of asylum to them so that it can expel and deport them quickly and keep them from American communities. So to the extent that our whole immigration system in the 1980s and 1990s becomes much more punitive and really applies the illegal status to all kinds of foreign-born people, it's really doing that in many ways, especially when it comes to detention, to Haitians first, and then it expands to many other groups.
And I want to circle back to the idea that we called Haitian immigrants boat people, but a lot of immigrants come to this country by boat, and they're just immigrants, or they're just people. Well, let's just go back though, and just give us a little bit of a history of, where we were in the 50s in terms of immigration. I mean, really, in many respects, our immigration system starts about 30 years before that or so, when we're looking to exclude people. Specifically at that time, it was more the Chinese. But let's take it from the 50s and work our way up, because something turns in the 70s with Haitian immigrants.
Yes, that's right. So in the 1950s, sorry, can you hear me? It looks like I'm having
we can hear you.
Connectivity issues, but okay, great, thank you. In the 1950s, we're about 2 or more decades into a period of immigration restriction. There was an Immigration Restriction Act in 1924 that severely limits immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe, that bans all Asian immigrants, and that sort of curates the population, the immigrant population, according to the standards of preference for Northern and Western, European immigrants. But in 1954, maybe as a function of that, they suspended the policy of immigration detention, which had been in effect for a number of years previously, really since the first immigration stations on Ellis Island and Angel Island were established. And they say, we don't need to lock up immigrants anymore. We can release them and process them and allow them to come back if they need to for their court hearings and their immigration dates. So immigration detention, although it continues in some respects, isn't formally a part of American policy from 1954 onward, when the Haitian asylum seekers started coming in the 1970s. Mm-hmm.
We refer to that as parole, right? Just so that we know where we are in terms of terms. That's the way we refer to it as parole. Like, that's become a period of time, and it just came up recently with Afghan immigrants too. That's the period of time where we allow immigrants to be in the country where their status has yet to be determined, but we're not trying to round them up. INS or Customs and Border is not trying to go after them.
That's right. And it's based on the idea that, most immigrants are not a threat to public health and safety, and that they should be allowed to live their lives, in freedom and dignity until we can figure out what their status is going to be in this country. And so that you're right, that was that policy for at least many immigrants in the middle decades of the 20th century. That starts to shift when Haitian asylum seekers start to come. It's part of a larger racist reaction to what's happening in immigration, because in 1965, they changed the immigration laws to do away with the racist national origins quotas, but also it allows many more immigrants from Latin America and Asia to start coming in. And also in reaction to some of the civil rights and liberation struggles of the 1960s and 70s, there's this racist backlash. And that's part of what's responding to the arrival of Haitian asylum seekers. And so in Florida, and then increasingly nationally, there's this desire to keep out what people viewed as poor, Black, foreign-born people from Haiti. And they start to use that tool of detention and imprisoning immigrants to try to enforce a more restrictive idea of immigration restriction.
Okay, and so it's we're in the 70s. There's this issue of boat people. I mean, Cuban immigrants come by boat. But why is it that only Haitian immigrants are boat people?
Cuban immigrants had received preferential treatment for some time, as at least since the Cuban Revolution of 1959, and that then produces a number of anti-communist exiles to the United States. It's during the Cold War, and so the United States is wanting to welcome asylum seekers and refugees that are fleeing communist nations, because to the United States government, it demonstrates that they're facing persecution. Haiti, unfortunately for Haitian asylum seekers, is being ruled by the Duvalier dictatorship, which was anti-communist and a convenient ally of the United States in the Caribbean. And so in addition to racist, xenophobic reaction to Haitians, there's a geopolitical interest there in maintaining relationship with an anti-communist ally in the Caribbean, despite the fact that Haitians and Cubans have a very similar profile.
I mean, it's fascinating to me. Like, you could say they're escaping a brutal dictator, or that they're, you could say refugees, but boat people. I don't know that. I mean, I remember that as a kid, frankly. So talk about what we have after. I mean, this is Jimmy Carter's administration. What is Carter's? I mean, what is behind this detention? Is it simply that they want to maintain, the U.S. wants to maintain relationships with Duvalier, or is it there is some other impetus here, or is it just simply a question of racism?
I think it is in part geostrategic, and it's about the Cold War. But I also think that if you look at what happened sort of on the ground in Florida in the 1970s, there's a push by local officials toward Washington and the State Department to restrict Haitians, because it was seen that they were going to be a disruptive force, and their local constituents didn't like that. But really a major shift continues and really propels it much further forward in the 1980s, when in the summer of 1980, more than 100,000 Cubans and roughly 15,000 Haitians all arrived in the summer on American shores. And that was really the first time that the United States was in this position of just receiving huge numbers of asylum seekers showing up and asking for asylum. Our immigration law wasn't very well suited to handle that. And I think that really planted a fear in many American officials' minds that, unless we do something to stop this, we may be, continuing to receive huge numbers of asylum seekers from throughout Latin America. And part of their response to try to deter Haitian asylum seekers was also, we want to make sure, it's not the Central American asylum seekers that are fleeing US-backed wars in places like El Salvador and Guatemala. We could be any number of countries in the future. What we do here, they reasoned, is could be a precedent and something we can apply to many other groups. And it turns out they did, to try to keep asylum seekers from the United States.
I mean, this is the dynamic where the Haitian immigrant becomes sort of maybe the canary in the coal mine is not necessarily the right analogy, but essentially, this is our test case. You're our pilot program, and if it works with you, we'll apply it to others. Mm-hmm. What also I did not realize was, I mean, I remember 10 years ago reading shareholder reports in the private prison industry, where they were pivoting from like, we are afraid we're going to see some type of criminal justice reform. So we're going to have a supply problem, or at least I guess a demand problem in that respect. But we see big potential in the immigrant detention space. But that is actually not a new phenomenon. That's actually what kicked off that industry, was immigrant detention. Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yes. So the very first private prisons in this country were immigration detention facilities. Some of these big names, like Corrections Corporations of America, which becomes Core Civic, started out in immigration detention. And for a while, they're making huge profits detaining both native and foreign-born people, because this is in the 1990s, where you sort of have this increasing criminalization of immigration and also the war on drugs and racialized mass incarceration. But more recently, as you say, where you have a massive social movement to try to move towards decriminalization and move against mass incarceration, there's still, for many people, the idea that you need to imprison illegal immigrants. And so that's still a very profitable thing, especially when there's a mandate for a certain number of a quota that needs to be filled, so that you arresting and imprisoning so many immigrants per year. And that's definitely continues to add to the profits. And also, I should just say that, immigrants are the most profitable people to imprison, because mostly they're not criminals. They don't cost a lot of money to, incarcerate, and you get huge amounts of money from the federal and different kinds of governments to do this. Our local and county jails are imprisoning immigrants and making a lot of money where they're sometimes not receiving a lot of other revenue. So it is a big part of the prison industrial complex, and it has been since the 1980s when it all really got started.
Also, we should say that it's not just the private prison industry, which basically launched off of Haitian immigrants. To what extent was Guantanamo a detention center before it was used for Haitian immigrants?
Well, yeah, I mean, the United States obtains the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay as a result of the Spanish-American War, and it's used in various purposes, but it's really in the early 1990s, when Haiti's going through a military coup, that the presidency of George H.W. Bush starts using Guantanamo as an offshore detention facility for Haitian asylum seekers. And, Haitians are the original Guantanamo detainees. Many Americans learn about Guantanamo, learned about it as after 9/11, and there's a black site where people were tortured. But, Haitians endured torture and violence and great hardship at Guantanamo before it became a tragic site in the War on Terror.
And then what was the Clinton administration's role in continuing these detentions at Gitmo?
Mm-hmm. Clinton, when he's running for president, pledges to reverse the most cruel elements of the George H.W. Bush policy in regards to Haitians, and says we won't keep returning them directly to Haiti, we won't imprison them. But after he's elected, he does an about face, and he continues to return people to Haiti, and he also continues to use Guantanamo as a detention facility. In fact, it's under the Clinton years, rather than the Bush years, that some of the most intense confrontations between Haitian prisoners there and the guards really happened, especially in a camp that was devoted to the detention of HIV positive Haitians who weren't allowed to enter because of their health status. They have a lot of resistance, and it's brutally suppressed. And that's one of the legacies of Clinton's immigration policy in the Clinton years.
I want to go back to the Reagan years too, because we sort of skipped over that. But since we're here, that dynamic in terms of AIDS and in terms of Haitian immigrants being denied, and people should be clear here, right? Like, all of this concept of asylum seekers and refugees is a function of international law that is developed in the wake largely of World War II. I mean, so this is a situation where the United States is trying to figure out, how do we appear to be upholding international law in this regard, but how do we really undercut the implications of that law by hook or crook? And so when we are detaining and essentially, we're trying to squeeze into some daylight between, where the international law is and frankly also our own statutes in regarding asylum seekers. the preventing of even the processing of Haitian immigrants when they're at Guantanamo because they may or may not have AIDS. How much of that is a model for what we see today with Title 42?
I think it's a very important precursor to what the Trump and now the Biden administration is doing, using public health as a pretext to block and then expel Haitians and other people from being, legally, as you mentioned, admitted to this land and allow them to file their asylum claims, which, as you said, they have the internationally recognized and, according to our federal law, right to do. First, actually, before it was even AIDS for Haitians, it was association with tuberculosis in the 1970s. Tuberculosis was supposed to be the reason to keep Haitians out. Then in the 1980s and 1990s, it was AIDS. There was a special, as we mentioned, prison camp in Guantanamo, just quarantining Haitians who were HIV positive from coming here. This is a history that extends before and up to today regarding Title 42 in our current pandemic and really, I would say, illegitimate use of a public health law in the immigration context.
All right, let's go back to the 80s and during the Reagan administration, and we should say that by was it 85, 86? There was a sort of an immigration bill that provided, what the right would call amnesty. Many would just simply call like an ability to become citizens for immigrants. But how much of what Reagan was, how sensitive was the Reagan administration to the idea of this many Black immigrants coming in? I mean, Ronald Reagan, I don't even think Ronald Reagan would take offense to me characterizing it that way, frankly.
Yeah, so you're right that there was immigration reform in 1986 that had both the carrot and the stick of, offering a path to legalizing one's status, but then there were also new punishments for employers and people working illegally. So there were the two sides of that. But I would definitely say that the Reagan administration, while in the papers and things that I examined, is not often explicitly saying we want to keep Black, migrants or asylum seekers out. We don't want Haitians because they're Black. It seems quite clear, and the advocates and activists also saw this on the ground as they were struggling around these issues, that there was a racist motive for this, just as there is a racial and racist element to our immigration enforcement today. I think it's also especially clear when you look at what the Reagan administration was doing in other maybe non-immigration contexts, the war on drugs, the building of the prison system, even the way that Reagan launched his campaign for presidency in Mississippi, talking about, we're going to return this to a states' rights kinds of things. Well, when you say that kind of thing in Mississippi, people know what that means. It's a pushback against civil rights. And I think if you examine the Reagan record more broadly, the anti-Haitian program is very consistent with a larger effort to advance or resuscitate white supremacy that I think is clearly going on in the Reagan years.
We should say, just as a reminder to people, Reagan, after winning the nomination in 1980 for the Republican Party, traveled to Philadelphia, Mississippi. We actually went to I think it's the Neshoba County Fair, 2 or 3 miles from where those civil rights workers, if you've ever seen the movie Mississippi Burning, were killed. And the cry of those people and the people who are supportive of the people who killed those civil rights workers were like, you federal government can't tell us what to do in our state. And so to go there and to proclaim that his campaign is about states' rights sends a very not so subtle message. We should also say, just as long as we're doing context, he had a lawyer in his Justice Department, in the Office of Legal Counsel, I think it was, or maybe it was the Civil Rights Division, who was insistent that Reagan not sign the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act And that young baby-faced lawyer grew up to be the Supreme Court, the Chief Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts. So just to give you a sense, yes, it's wonderful how they all move forward. But I want to talk a little bit, and then we can go back up, through the years up into the Clinton years, because we have some real questions about the Clintons. But we start to see some pushback, both from the Haitian immigrant community, but also legal challenges. Talk about the hunger strike that was ongoing in Alderson, West Virginia, at that time.
Yeah, and that's just one example of a lot of direct action within jails and detention facilities, really from the very moment that Haitian refugees and asylum seekers are being incarcerated. They had a very powerful way of utilizing direct action and then tying their action to what allies and advocates were doing on the outside to sort of amplify the call for freedom and just treatment. They partnered with Black American organizations, churches, labor organizations, civil rights coalitions to really sort of center the injustice and unjust treatment of Haitians to a broader set of issues. And very often it was galvanized by the hunger strikes and the direct actions that were happening in West Virginia, in the Chrome Avenue Detention Center in Miami, and really everywhere where Haitians were detained.
Emma, I know you had a question about the Clintons, because as we get into, through the Herbert Walker Bush regime, then we're presidency, into the Clinton years. I mean, the Clintons had and
they
not just in office.
Bizarre relationship with Haiti, right? Well, I don't need to cut you off, but I'm wondering if you could expand on how this time period cemented the Clintons' relationship with Haiti, and I would say weird white savior fixation, but also a way to expand their own capitalist interests there through their foundation and a variety of other mechanisms. This is still ongoing, their involvement in the country. Can you, I guess, expand on that relationship and what that meant from the presidency to the present day?
Yes. So it was during the Clinton years that the Aristide presidency was restored in Haiti. And, it took a U.S. Military invasion of the country to do that, to restore the democratically elected presidency of Jean-Bertrand Aristide. That was seen as a victory for democratic institutions and to a degree, a way of sort of supporting the popular movement and popular institutions that had brought Aristide to power. But there were many people who said, but we don't really want it to happen at the hands of a U.S. military occupation. We've been here before. And the other thing that happens with Clinton that I think sort of sets the stage for some of what comes later is that Aristide was required to agree to a whole set of neoliberal policies that he would adopt in Haiti that were very sort of antithetical to the kinds of things the grassroots movement wanted and that he was standing for before he was ousted by a military coup. So that's another important turning point. Clinton and the Clinton administration required that adoption of neoliberalism as a condition of returning to power. And I would say that neoliberalism has done a lot of continuing damage to Haiti. And I think, a lot of Haitians recognize that and they feel quite ambivalent, you might say, towards Clinton, despite the fact that, after the earthquake in 2010, he sort of set up as the ambassador to Haiti who's going to help oversee the reconstruction, which doesn't happen very effectively, even after more than a decade. I think there's, even before the coup and the restoration of the Aristide government, the Clinton administration has a troubled relationship with Haiti, as evidenced by his treatment of Haitian asylum seekers. But I think especially the U.S. invasion, occupation, and imposition of neoliberalism is an important continuing souring of that relationship.
What happens on the immigration front from the, and we just had, the numbers seem to be all over the place in terms of the way that it's reporting. I've seen anywhere from 8 to 16,000 Haitian immigrants cross the border over the past, I don't know, I guess a couple of months, and people, they were living largely under a bridge in Texas. It is still unclear to me, many sort of conflicting reports, how many were allowed to stay in this country, how many were sort of summarily, I don't even want to use the word deported because they weren't processed in any way. They were expelled. I've seen reporting that suggests these immigrants were actually largely immigrants, really refugees from that 2010 earthquake, that they had been living in South and Central America, and over the years things had become difficult, and they had sort of migrated up and were looking for some form, I guess, of temporary protected status in this country. Do you have any sense of that? And then also what happens in the interim between the Clinton administrations ending in 2000 and really over the course of the past 15, 20 years in regard to Haitian immigration?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you're right that, over the last few years, it's not just a recent thing, but Haitian asylum seekers have been making their way to the U.S.-Mexico border and trying to seek safety and security here. Many of them were displaced by the 2010 earthquake, and as you say, did find employment and a home for a period in places like Brazil and Chile. But when some of those situations became unsustainable, they continued to move, as people do, and made their way to the U.S.-Mexico border. And it wasn't even just something in the last few months. This has been happening for years. In the years since Clinton, under George W. Bush, and then Barack Obama, the policy towards Haiti and Haitian refugees has remained largely the same. There are a couple high-profile moments where it's actually very parallel in terms of what's happening from the 1970s and 80s. But I would say that the policy towards Haitian asylum seekers is very similar. There's a temporary suspension for about 6 years, I believe, after the 2010 earthquake, where there's not a lot of, where there's temporary protected status extended to Haitians, and Haitian deportations to Haiti are not being pursued aggressively. But I believe it was in 2016 under Obama, 2014, I have to check my years there. But I believe Obama was the one that resumed deportations to Haiti and sort of said that period of that period after the earthquake is ending, and we're going to resume what has historically been our approach towards Haitian asylum seekers and refugees.
And then during the Trump years, we see an assault on the concept of the temporary protected status. I mean, we had Haitians living in this country for 5, 6, as time went on, 7, 8 years, 9 years, who had come because the rebuilding efforts, like you said, after the 2010 earthquake have been, mediocre at best, I guess you could characterize it, and so there just wasn't the opportunity for people to go back and resume their lives, find their homes, find jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And Trump was really looking to deport these people as well. Where does this go from here? I mean, I just saw a report today, I think, that the Custom and Border Patrol has arrested more people in this 10-month period by a factor of what, I don't know, than, in anywhere in recent memory. It does not feel like Joe Biden is going to expend any capital, although at this point, although who knows later, on helping the Haitian people who have just gone through multiple, disasters, including a massive earthquake, a hurricane, and an assassination of the presidency. Where does this trajectory go forward from here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it seems so far, you're right, that the Biden administration is not only mostly continuing the Trump administration's practice of blocking and expelling Haitian asylum seekers, but intensifying it. Many more Haitians were expelled under the Title 42 provisions than in the last years of the Trump administration. I think the Biden administration officials might feel vulnerable to this claim that, by sort of dropping some of the most cruel aspects of the Trump administration's policy, it's inviting asylum seekers en masse to come to the border. And so therefore it might be trying to, be a little more harsh in order to politically sort of defend against those claims. But I want to add that just as in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there's a pretty active grassroots movement that is calling on the Biden administration to actually match its practice with its rhetoric, because when Trump made his racist, derogatory claims about Haitian and African migrants, the Biden administration condemned it. And it said, we're going to have a more humane policy towards foreign-born people, immigrants, refugees. And so now groups like UndocuBlack and the Haitian Bridge Alliance are saying, let's actually get rid of racism in our immigration policy and start treating Haitians and other Black migrants and all other people humanely, like you said, you were going to, and stop doing what the Trump administration is doing. And we'll see how much power they can mobilize and pressure they can mobilize on the Biden administration. We'll see if President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris choose to be responsive to that movement.
Yeah. I guess we will. So far, I got to say, it sort of feels like there's not a lot of, I don't know how much boldness you need to treat people with humanity, but to the extent that you do, they're not exhibiting a ton of it at this point.
It's even worse than I thought it would be, honestly, with them.
Yeah, it's rough. Well, Carl Lindskoog, the book is Detain and Punish: Haitian Refugees and the World's Largest Immigration Detention System. We will put a link to that book at majority.fm. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to wrap things up for our Peacock viewers and head into the second half of this program, as we do every day. Be right back. We were just saying at the break that it is if you look at, there is a parallel universe where our immigration system is built upon the idea of this country has largely been, built upon the ideas and the durability that comes from having different populations in our country, and that we have the resources and we have the ability to welcome people into this country. Our immigration system has not been built that way. It has been built upon how do we prevent Chinese people from coming in? Or then it develops to how do we prevent, Italians from coming in? And then how do we prevent Haitians from coming in?
And when they do come in, how do we criminalize them through the war on drugs?
And make sure that they serve capitalists, only let in just enough to serve whatever sort of industries we need their labor for.
Right. On one hand, I have I'm going with my kid to Ellis Island and it's really cute. And then the other hand, it's like, oh, wait a second. This is really, no, it's not really about that. And so Haitian immigrants became sort of like it was our racism that became the sort of disruptive innovation on how we can, different ways we could detain these people. And of course, build the private prison industry. So there you have it.
Have a lovely day with that thought in your mind.
And if you're watching us on Peacock, we will see you tomorrow.
Everything you know about America's a lie. See you later.
We will see you then. And if you're still with us, but now we get to the fun part. In fact, it's so fun. We call it the fun half. It's not actually the halfway mark. It's less than halfway mark. And it's not always fun, but that doesn't mean that we can't brand it that way.
Right.
And we do. Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes the show possible. If you want this program to survive and thrive, become a member. Go to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you support the free show. And then you get extra content every day. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget the AM Quickie. Got a special, what do they call it? Chestnut? What do you call it? Easter egg. There's an Easter egg in it.
That's how I know. One of the many reasons I know you hate Marvel.
I hate Marvel.
Right? There's always Easter eggs in the credits, so like Marvel movies.
Right, I also don't celebrate Easter, so there's that. But nevertheless, if you sign up for the AM Quickie, tomorrow you will get it in your email inbox, and it will have the special pre-sale code for the live show. Check it out. Go to majority.fm, scroll down, put in your email address. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY, get 10% off. It's a fair trade company. One of our movement sponsors, I call them. Somebody told me that once, during the Cernovich thing. I was like, yeah, no, it was Just Coffee. They tipped me off to what Cernovich was doing. Oh, yeah, because they're like a movement sponsor. And I'm like, yes.
Perfect way to...
Yes, that's absolutely right. They are. That's exactly right. So check it out. Justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate, 10% off. Coupon code majority. And join our Discord. MajorityDiscord.com. Hang out there. Check out Nomi's show, youtube.com/The Nomi Keys Show. And Matt, what's happening in the Matt Lekian? That's not the MCU. The MCU. MLU.
Yeah, something like that. Branko Marcetic of Jacobin, he was the author of Yesterday's Man, the case against Joe Biden. We're going to be talking to him about why it still feels a lot like yesterday with Joe Biden and his failure to get his agenda through. So that's tonight, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, patreon.com/leftreckoning to get us, to get our post game.
What about Pacific?
I think that would be 5. Yeah,
I'm just curious. You say 8 Eastern, 7
because
Central, but you don't.
Well,
like
we're
you
a co-op,
don't want.
And David negotiated for Central Time to be the official time zone of Left Reckoning.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So I do say 7 Central.
So what would you say? Like 75% of your guests are not there on time?
Yeah, exactly. It's causing some issues, but.
Folks, 646-257-3920 is the number. We will, in fact, be taking your phone calls today. So if you're one of those people who've been trying to get through, we're not going to take all of your calls. We can't. We get 25 calls stacked up at a time, but we'll take some. See you in the fun half. 646-257-3920. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back. It is the fun half. Let's start right up. What do you do? Well, let me rephrase that. We all like to take nice Sunday drives in our vintage trucks, right? Sometimes I
Every
like to get
Sunday,
into
yeah, before I watch the game and crack a brewski.
my 67 Ford F-150, hop in that baby, and I ride around in the cornfields, and I like to stop and shoot a selfie video, tell everybody I'm about to get indicted. Well, that's what Representative Jeff Fortenberry did, Republican from Nebraska. said, honey, hop in the truck. Let's go take a trip. And then maybe at one point, let's just shoot a video announcing that I'm about to be indicted for lying to the FBI. Here it is.
Hi, this is Jeff Fortenberry, and I'm out for a drive in my 1963 Ford F-100 pickup truck with our dog Pippin, and this is my wife Celeste. We do this every now and then. I wanted to send you a video because we do have something hard to tell you.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for a second. We can we just appreciate this? Can we just appreciate, like, hey, everybody, we're just taking our typical Sunday drive, and we decided this might be the best place to shoot the, we didn't want to get, didn't want to be in our home for whatever reason.
We're definitely not on the run in rural Iowa cornfields.
Right, this is Badlands, right? Like and I love how, like, you got to watch the expression of her face, like, because he's like, all right, now, sweetie, I'm about to, all right. How many times do you think they did this? Like, 3, 2, 1, okay. All right, let's take two. 3, 2, 1.
More casual this time.
Yeah, more casual. Sweetheart, just hold your smile until I get into the tough stuff. Okay.
It's like that meme of the Kardashians that I just sent, like where Kim Kardashian's taking selfies of herself as Khloe's going to prison. Do you have that? Screen grab?
Oh wait, go pop up. Let's go back to the do the start from the beginning on this video. I think this is so great. Hey everybody, we're out here taking my F-100 1963, and we got some really bad news. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jeff Fortenberry, and I'm out for a drive in my 1963 Ford F-100 pickup truck with our dog Pippin, and this is my wife Celeste. We do this every now and then. I wanted to send you a video because we do have something hard to tell you, and so many of you have been so kind to us through the years and have treated us and my family with such generosity. We thought you ought to know first. About 5.5 years ago, a person from overseas illegally moved money to my campaign. I didn't know anything about this and used some other Americans to do so. They were all caught and punished, thankfully. About 2.5 years ago, I had a knock on my door on a weekend. I had been out dealing with the effects of the bomb cyclone that had hit us, which was so devastatingly harsh to our communities. They were FBI agents from California.
What?
I let them in my house. I answered their questions. Later, we went back and answered further questions. I told them what I knew and what I understood. They've accused me of lying to them and are charging me with this. We're shocked. We're stunned. I feel so personally betrayed. We thought we were trying to help. And so now we will have to fight. You've known me for many, many years. I try to give you honest, clear answers and do my duty as a representative for our great state and for America. And I try to do so forthrightly for you and our families. To be accused of this is extremely painful, and we are suffering greatly. We will fight these charges. Did not lie to them. I told them what I knew. But we need your help. First of all, please pray for us because this is a difficult time. Please stand with us, and if you can send some kind comments, that would also be helpful. Hopefully this all ends happily for the sake of justice, for the sake of my own integrity, and for the sake of the American system. This is wrong at so many levels. Thank you so much.
I like how his smile slowly fades throughout the video. I'm just out for a ride with Pippin and I guess my wife Celeste.
Exactly. And this one's Pippin and this one's Celeste.
Yeah. Pippin and fucking Celeste.
I don't know. I just thought that was a great way to announce that you're being indicted, and I just can't help but think where should we do this, sweetheart? Should we do it in the home? Probably not, because we probably don't want people to see the home. Might be a little bit too in your face. Let's get out in the vintage truck and drive around and then shoot the selfie.
Not the Porsche, the vintage truck. And then bring the dog for the extra touch.
Exactly. See if you can get our neighbor's dog.
That's a Nixonian touch.
Exactly. Jonathan Larson from TYT has a great piece up that about Fortenberry's relationship with the family, which is a secretive Christian group that has been tied to multiple political scandals in the past years. Definitely worth a read. Hillary Clinton also. I'm not sure she was a member of the family, but she spent she was family adjacent.
It's a very creepy group.
Yes, very creepy. So check that out.
Bobby Big Wheel has some more context for Jeff Fortenberry, and I only hesitate on his last name there because he was notable. I'll just read Bobby's tweet. The funny part is that Fortenberry is in a safe red seat. The only time his campaign's made the news is when he tried to get a guy fired for posting this on Facebook, and it put googly eyes and made his name into Fartenberry.
Talk about cancel.
And Kyle Cheney has the. I'll put that tweet back up. Kyle Cheney has a tweet. Is it, from Politico. The DOJ case, a witness to illegal campaign contributions, began cooperating with the FBI in 2016. The witness repeatedly told Fortenberry that he had gotten illegal donations. Fortenberry didn't do anything about it, and then he lied to the FBI about it. In other words, Fortenberry was like, I don't care that the donations are illegal. Oh, wait, you're from California, FBI? I didn't know that the donations were illegal. I barely changed a single verb.
He just had to find out where they were from, right?
No. That's the only thing I changed. I went from care to no. I don't care. I don't know.
Gotcha.
What's the difference?
Guys, come on. Why don't we all hop in my pickup truck and we can drive out into the cornfields and have this out and talk about it.
I just didn't care to know.
Sorry.
Oh, I've got a call in. Somebody tells me that they couldn't hear on the phone, and I will call into the phone system now. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. I will do that. And that sound signals that I am on the line, and you are calling from a 518 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Josh from Albany.
Josh from Albany. What's on your mind?
Hey, I had something to add to your conversation regarding Dennis Prager.
Okay.
All right, Dennis Prager, we should let everybody know, had COVID. He, fortunately, is extremely wealthy and had access to monoclonal antibodies. And he is super psyched that he got COVID. He had been trying desperately by hugging hundreds of people to get COVID. And God knows what else he was doing. And he mission accomplished. And now he thinks he's going to live forever. What did you have to add?
So a long time ago, 15 years or so, I had a lecture. This would have been in probably my first year of medical school. And the guy came in, his name was Dr. Prager, and I thought, he sounded exactly like Dennis Prager. He gave a great lecture, very affable guy on the scale of attendings, very nice. But come to find out, he was Dennis Prager's brother. And do you know what he does as a practice?
Epidemiologist?
No, he is a pulmonologist and the director of medical ethics at Columbia.
Interesting.
Wow.
So he could have called his brother for a much better take.
Wow. Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I thought you'd want to know.
I feel like a reporter should somehow ask him what his opinion of his brother's going around hugging people trying to catch COVID. If that is a medically suggested way of gaining antibodies.
Yeah, I didn't go to Columbia and Harvard like Prager's brother did, but on the natural immunity thing, like Prager fetishizes this natural immunity, and there's something to be said about natural immunity if you avoid getting maimed or killed by the virus in the process of it. But it's still true of like if you're vaccinated. So like getting vaccinated plus having had the natural antibodies is the best immunity you could possibly get. So immunity is what you care about.
Right.
And Prager could have just, which he might be lying, like Will Menaker suggested he thinks Prager actually is vaxxed and is just not being forthright about it. But actually that's like, if you get vaccinated and then you get the virus later, one, you're protected from the worst sort of effects, and then you have the best immunity. So if like Prager's talking about how he has this great immunity, he could have had even better immunity if he was vaccinated prior.
I got the best immunity. Well, appreciate the call.
Thank you for the info.
Yep, no problem. You guys take care.
Bye-bye.
I got a cashew in my throat. Got a cashew in my throat.
Calling from a
Not COVID.
773 area code. Who's this?
Hey, yo, this be Uchi Wally, man.
Uchi Wally. Long time no hear from.
No, it's been a couple weeks.
Okay.
But I guess I'll hop right into it. I hear people, and I don't object to this, so this isn't an argument. They say they want to break up big tech, and I'm fine with that. So let's just establish that. But when you say you want to break up Google, that makes sense to me. You'll have Android, YouTube, Gmail, all these products as separate companies, so that's fine. But when you say you want to break up Facebook, I could see you have Facebook.com, the website, maybe WhatsApp and Instagram, and that's not good enough. So what do you mean when you say you want to break up Facebook?
You mean beyond Instagram and and WhatsApp?
Yeah, sure.
Beyond parsing them out, although those are pretty big things. I think you would agree that removing those from Facebook isn't good enough. No, I would agree with that too. I think, look, there's a bunch of other companies also that they've bought that are just more B2B type of situations and aren't necessarily public facing, that allow them to integrate sort of their data scraping and their advertising stuff. I think there's room there. I would also once you allow other competitors to exist in some of their spaces, I would also begin to regulate the hell out of what you can do with data and what you can do with advertising. So I mean, I think there's I think, look, there's plenty of people who are more expert on the specific companies in terms of the way that you would break them up. And there's different ways that you can do that. But the idea is that you don't want these companies to have the ability to own both the distribution mechanism and the data and the advertising. All of these things should not necessarily be housed by the same corporate entity. And I would scrutinize going forward their acquisition of other companies much more so.
Okay. I'm not sure that's a good enough answer for me, but I'm cool with it. I'll suggest a guest. Have you ever had Cory Doctor on? I think you have.
Yes, we have months, maybe not even months ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
I watch every day.
Yeah, you know what? That's not a satisfactory answer for me, Uchiwali. What do you think about that?
Man. Hey, man, I just turned 48, man. My mind is gone.
Excuse me. I got you beat by more than a half a decade.
Okay, so anyway, the reason why I recommended him, this subject came up on the Leo Laporte's podcast. I know you know who he is because you mentioned him before.
Yeah.
And I think he gave a better answer. That's the only reason.
Well, Leo Laporte is a tech journalist.
Oh yeah, but I like Leo and he's an okay guy politically when he dips into politics. But, they're not, the tech press as a whole isn't that good.
No, I agree. But my point being that, call up Leo Laporte and ask him what the Social Security trustees are doing these days. And then you tell him his answer is inadequate. And you say to him and say, Sam Seder knows the answer to that.
You have hurt Sam's feelings, Uchiwali.
What was that? Sorry.
You've hurt Sam's feelings.
Yeah, you have.
I intended to.
Well,
I intended to.
Mission accomplished.
Wow.
Mission accomplished.
It's always nice doing this, Sam.
No, I know. I appreciate you calling that. It's good to hear from you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Let's take one more call. Calling from a 314 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Jennifer from St. Louis. Can you hear me?
Jennifer from St. Louis. What's on your mind? We can hear you, although you sound a little bit distant. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, I'm on my AirPods. Hold up.
Ugh, those things are
two
horrible.
Things. Oh,
They don't ever work.
No, but
Did you go away? Yes, she did.
Oh.
Yeah, she hung up on herself because of those damn AirPods. God. What a scourge they are. Total scourge. Call from a 571 area code. We'll keep our eye open for her again. 571, who's
Hello?
this? Hello?
Hi, my name is Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dan. What?
Yes. Hi.
Hold on, I just got to say, just got an IM from Judy Giuliani. Uchi Wally pulling a Joy Behar on me. But go ahead. Call from 571 area code. Who's this?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is Dan.
Dan, where are you calling from?
From California.
Okay.
I was wondering if you're open to talking about your chat room policy, like in the live chat for the viewers.
Yes, please. Tell me what my chat room policy is.
No, I'm asking you about your chat room.
Yes, I'm asking you what my chat room policy is.
All right. Well, I'm trying to figure what it is. So yesterday I was on the chat, and some people were saying some things which were rude and obnoxious, and so I blocked them. And
Which chat? Which chat are you talking about? YouTube chat, Twitch chat.
Yeah.
Facebook chat.
The YouTube chat.
Discord. Okay, YouTube. Okay.
So I blocked the people who were being rude and obnoxious to me.
In what way were they being rude and obnoxious to you?
They're just saying silly comments. Like, I think.
Were they being rude or silly?
Both, I would say.
All right. Well, tell me what the rude is.
I think the first one. Well, one person was saying I was just uttering gibberish, and another person was saying I was infertile.
Oh my
God! I mean, just silly nonsense.
Well,
so I don't want to hear the crap. I'm there to have more substantive discussion.
Right.
So I blocked those people.
Okay.
Why did they say those things?
Why would they say that you were infertile? Let's say, for instance.
I don't know.
I mean,
it was just ridiculous. It had nothing to do with what I said.
Okay.
It's just trolling comments.
Well, you wouldn't say something like, "I'm unable to," you didn't
say I'm shooting blanks.
Right. You didn't say anything like that.
No, it had nothing to do with my biology.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this.
Okay. So it was just a ridiculous kind of troll comment.
Right.
And so I blocked the people who were making comments like that, and I said that I blocked people for that reason because they were just being rude and obnoxious.
We're silly.
And then the moderator, one of the moderators, blocked me.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what's going on here? I have to listen to this ridiculous BS if I'm going to be here participating in the live chat. I can't block someone. And he insisted that I had to unblock all the people who were being rude and obnoxious. And I said, no, I'm not going to unblock those people.
Wait, how are you communicating with the moderator at this point?
I'm because he hasn't blocked me yet. So I'm still able to explain what's
So the
going on.
moderator says to you, unblock the other people, and you go, no, I will not. They said I was infertile, and they said I'm talking gibberish. And then the moderator said, well, you better unblock them, or I'm going to block you.
Yeah, he said, I'm giving you an ultimatum.
Okay.
You have to unblock
Now, let me ask you this. When you get blocked by the moderator, does that mean that you can't be on the chat at all? Or just the moderator can't hear
other
you?
people chatting. No, it just means that once I get blocked by the moderator, I can no longer participate in the chat. I can no longer type anything. I can only see what other people type.
I see.
So, I mean, I think it's not a great policy.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. Okay. Now, and I am completely open to the idea that this is a bad policy, but our policy, our longstanding policy has been, if you are told that you're speaking gibberish or that you're infertile, then you're not allowed to block people for that. Now I'm open to the idea that that's a bad policy.
Yeah, that is in the bylines.
It is, I mean, it's not just that. If somebody says you're silly, also you're not allowed to block people for that. If they say something like you smell like a fart, also not allowed to block. But if they say something more like with an expletive, like you are a piece of the S word, then you are allowed to block. Now, look.
But did you get blocked after all, or was it a threat to be blocked?
No, I got blocked, and I was banned for 3 days.
Oy.
Because other people were being rude.
Okay, all right. Now we're on to something else, because technically you were supposed to be banned for 2 days. I spent a lot of time drawing up these policies. The
mandatory minimums.
And I want to say, I'm open to the idea that maybe I made some mistakes. Now, the infertile thing I feel pretty strongly about, because
which direction?
I feel like you should not be able to block somebody if they say that you're infertile, unless you have talked about your inability to conceive, in which case that's off bounds. But if it is just a way that someone wants to insult you, my policy has always been that you're not allowed to block somebody for that. It's just
okay. But
now I know that sounds confusing, but I spent a lot of time on this, and I have. Hold on for a second. Let me get the book.
Okay. All right.
Do we have it? Oh, you're right.
Dust it off.
Hold on 1 second. Now, I got the policy for this stuff here, and I have it all on disk because we've got a lot of different policies. So just give me 1 second.
We gotta get a working disk drive, don't we?
I know, right?
Shit!
The new computer doesn't have one.
All right. You know what, Dan? I'm sorry. I'm going to need to get a new disc reader. I totally forgot about this. I did these all 8 years ago. It's all on CD now, and I don't have CDs anymore, so I can't look this stuff up, and I certainly can't change it until I get into the CDs. So I will work on this. All right?
All right. I guess one question I have is, like, if it is your policy for people to not block people who are just being rude and obnoxious to them.
Well, and silly. Silly. You need the silly part.
And sure, whatever.
Well,
but, like, why?
You say whatever, but I mean, the silly part to me was always like a mitigating factor.
Okay. But I think there's clearly rude and obnoxious stuff. So.
Well, that's my point, though. Rude and obnoxious and silly is different than just rude and obnoxious.
Mm-hmm. It adds to it.
No, it diminishes it.
Oh, sorry. I haven't been briefed on the policy yet.
No, I haven't read in Emma yet, because you're not supposed to really actually know the policy.
I think it's a little above my pay grade, to be honest.
18 months is when you get we do the trust camp. You get read in on the policies. So like Bradley is still like, he's almost a year and a half away.
That's probably the problem, honestly.
All right, but Dan, I really do appreciate the call.
All right.
Thanks.
Sure.
It's like being cleared in Scientology.
Right. Yeah. I know. You've got to get to, what is it, T5?
All right.
I haven't cleared myself.
314, I believe, is St. Louis. We'll take this call and then we'll go. Is this Jennifer?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, Jennifer, let me just tell you right up front. We've had our chat policy call for the day. I'm not going to allow two.
Oh, Lord. Oh, that's not what I was calling about.
Okay.
So.
All right. Then continue.
Two things.
Yep.
First of all was thank you for the birthday shofar for my son on Monday. I sent him the YouTube video with the timestamp, and he listened to it, and he texted me back, and he was like, "That's so cool!"
Well,
So
that's awesome.
Happy to make a kid think their parent is cool. Believe me, it's
Dude.
not easy.
It gets harder and harder.
Tell me about it. I have a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's worse. And then second of all, because I know you guys don't really like answering questions about politics, like Chuck Schumer.
Exactly.
Kind of politics adjacent. And that's kind of an advice question about any advice that anyone in the room might have about dating someone who is politically a bit more conservative than you. I consider myself kind of a little bit left of Bernie Sanders, and I'm seeing a guy who calls himself a Kennedy Democrat, which I'm like,
That's not bad.
Yeah.
It's hard to find, it could be worse. Trust me, I've dated worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's not. I think if they're ideologically right wing, that starts to be a problem.
Oh,
but I think
that's a non-starter.
Yes, and this is this is your opportunity. I've been
if they're a Woodrow Wilson Democrat, then you might have to raise an eyebrow. But
right, I'm
I'm not sure what that means.
It just the more if the relationship works out, you move them to the left just because it's common sense. And that's
let's
been
be
my
honest.
experience.
I mean, if we were to get back to the prevailing policies, well, I don't know if that's 100% true, actually, by Kennedy. I mean, we're talking pre-Medicaid.
Yeah, I mean,
we're talking pre-Medicare. But so I'm not 100% sure I know what that means. But let's put it this way. Let's agree on the things that we can agree on. 75% income tax rate for people making over $470,000 a year. Obviously, if you want to make it into 2021 dollars, let's say somewhere around $3 million a year, 75% income tax for every dollar over that. I'm up for that. I'm not sure what else we have. Maybe we start to take apart the CIA. Listen, my piece of advice would echo what everybody said here. You're fine. And when we get to the point where we're at that baseline of the Democratic Party in the era of Kennedy, short of maybe some of the Dixiecrats, et cetera, then you guys can start to have some arguments.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because he's very Eurocentric, right? Ideally, he would love to move to Germany, and I'm consider Germany considerably to the left. I think in general than where we are, right? Even just public transport.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they have it, and it works. It's not like a bus every 45 minutes that you pay $5 to get on, because that's about what public transport in St. Louis is.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys are going to be fine. If you were looking for the blessing of the show, you have it.
Yes.
And this is for the both of you.
That was an impromptu shofar.
There you go. Go with shofar, as we say here. All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks. We'll talk to you again.
Bye-bye.
You got a viable political project there.
Yeah, there we go. I think it's all going to work out. Great. Let's do this Jen Psaki thing. I'm not one to necessarily champion Jen Psaki.
Oh yeah, no, he's lying. Before the show, he was like, "I can't wait to show that Psaki bomb." Oh yeah, man, girl boss slayed so hard.
Yeah. Queen
of my life.
But I do. In New York City, has, his fault. And there's a lot of, we're seeing this around the country, right? We played a clip of, didn't we play that clip yesterday from Yakima? Did we do it?
No.
We didn't play that clip? We should play that clip. We'll play it in a bit. But you're starting to see videos around the country from cops. They just did a protest, I think, in Washington, D.C. Maybe it was. Where was I? I was watching video of the protest. There was almost like 40 people there. And so there's a lot of people. And there are police officers, presumably, whose job it is to protect and serve.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's not the case a lot of times in practice. But even if you say that their job is to beat and intimidate, they still have a lot of contact with the public. They can't do either without contact with the public. So you would think of all city workers,
the protect and serve ones might want to, I don't know.
Well, even if you're going to be one of those police who's like beat and intimidate, you're also going to want to like maybe not give anybody COVID
or get COVID yourself.
But here is Jen Psaki apparently schooling Steve Ducey.
She must have been watching the Majority Report, because this is the point you made a few days ago.
Exactly. On what the real danger to police officers is at the moment
Peter
around
Ducey,
the country.
Too, not Steve.
Oh, Steve Ducey's kid.
His son, who's the White House
Peter
reporter.
Ducey. Okay,
right.
Here it is.
The point of a vaccine mandate is to make people safer. But a vaccine mandate also means tons of police and military may walk off the job.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. All right. I don't know what tons of police mean. Like, I mean, he's saying, what if tons of police walk off?
Wait, the way this is being enforced is like going up to business owners and saying, are you complying with this?
Well, no, but now you have, like in New York City, city workers, including cops, you got to get mandated or you get a unpaid vacation.
Right.
And he's saying tons of police, but I don't think it's tons.
Well, tons is a fluid metric that he can use.
Right.
By total weight.
Right, exactly. Right. But go ahead. Maybe.
Cops grouped together that weigh like 3 elephants are
I mean, if I'm her, I respond with, well, maybe if they take their belts off with all their equipment, they won't weigh as much. But go ahead.
Stop eating donuts.
The point of a vaccine mandate is to make people safer. But a vaccine mandate also means tons of police and military may walk off the job. Then at the end of the day, does a vaccine mandate make people safer?
Well, where are tons of police and military walking off the job?
Well, the Washington Post says that hundreds of thousands of U.S. service members remain unvaccinated, which is leading to questions about possible military readiness. The L.A. County Sheriff says that 5 to 10% of their workforce could walk off the job. And so...
Oh, pause it for 1 second. Since we're talking about the L.A. County Sheriff's Department, full of rogue cop gangs, incidentally, since we're talking about keeping people safe. In fact, I think if we could multiply the number of tons of police officers who left the L.A. County Sheriff's Department, we would see a large uptick in the health and safety of people.
Yeah, I bet even the secret murder gangs are getting vaccinated.
Exactly. but put aside my bias towards dirty cops. Let's continue.
Yes, the L.A. County Sheriff says that 5 to 10% of their workforce could walk off the job, and so considering is there any concern about that?
Well, I would say what we point to, or what I would point you to, is evidence with a range of companies, organizations. Frankly, the Department of Defense can also give you the up-to-date statistics on members of the military. I believe it's over 90%, but I would point you them for statistics.
But there are other problems in the world than COVID-19. International terror, gang violence, murder, arson, drug dealing. Is there any concern about
what was the number one cause of death among police officers last year? Do you know? COVID-19. So that's something that we're working to address, and police departments are working to address. If you look at Seattle as an example, which I know has been in some of the reporting, 92% of the police force is vaccinated, as are 93% of firefighters. 99% of Seattle's 11,000 employees have submitted vaccine verification or an exemption request.
Safety, though, all these other problems, terror, murder, robberies, kidnappings. Is there any concern that if police forces shrink, or if the size of the ready military force shrinks, that the United States or localities may not be equipped properly to deal with
Peter,
that?
more than 700,000 people have died of COVID. Again, it was the #1 cause of death among police departments and police officers. It's something that we should take seriously. Departments are trying to save people in their departments, people who work for them. We support that effort, and there's been success across the country in that regard.
I love the look he's on his face. Like, you didn't hear what I said about all the. What about hurricanes?
The arson.
What about arson?
Right, exactly.
Hurricanes, murder, pestilence. Aren't you worried that if, wow, that guy is so embarrassing. And also put on a proper mask, both from an aesthetic and also from a health perspective. That thing is like so small. It's like I don't know.
You had to make it seersucker because we got to know you're a Republican. We get it. We get it, dude.
I mean, that's the bottom line. And if COVID was the #1 killer of police officers around the country, how many people that they come in contact with on a daily basis did they give COVID to who ended up dying? Yeah. Or getting long-term COVID, or giving COVID to somebody else who then gave it to somebody died. I mean, like, what? This is a highly contagious disease, and I would like to see some data on this.
Especially because, like, walking around New York, if you see people unmasked, chances are they're cops.
Yeah.
Oh,
we gotta get to this. Yeah.
Matt, where do you come up with stuff like that? From, like, this example of this video right here? Here are 2 cops who apparently some guy, and you can see, now, I think we know if this guy had in any way done anything that these cops could have justified arresting him. They would have arrested him on the spot. But he did not. All apparently he said, according to the person who took the video, was he went up to the cops and were like, how come you guys aren't masked?
Right.
In the subway.
Which is required of everybody else there. You have to wear a mask. It's constantly said over the loudspeaker. You have to wear a mask on the subway. Everyone else is supposed to do it, and they're supposed to be enforcing that everyone is supposed to do it.
And these cops are not wearing their masks around their chin. Check this out. Out of the subway.
Where's that in the
Tell me your badge number right now.
Not given the badge number.
Yep. You know, the classic provision. If you complain about the police officers not wearing masks, you get to be thrown out of the subway?
Yeah, if
What,
you
are they bouncers now?
I know.
Well, I mean, he apparently spent $250 to get on the subway, and so the cop essentially stole from him. He pushed him out. Like,
there's no provision where you can get booted from the subway station
for talking to a cop, for asking a cop a question. Oh, which way's 5th? Right.
You're being disruptive, like, so I can just move you wherever I want to as a police officer.
Yes, exactly.
Under the can't complain about the cops not wearing masks. And these aren't even, I mean, if they have a mask, it's in their pockets as in they're in the subway.
No, how dare you question my authority to do whatever the hell I want? And it's just like a reminder of where these cops are at politically. I mean, there's There's a lawsuit in Kenosha right now. The victim of Kyle Rittenhouse, who had at least one of his biceps partially shot off permanently by Kyle Rittenhouse, is suing the Kenosha Police Department for basically aiding and abetting these armed vigilantes. Like, I mean, this is just another example. Cops trend more right wing, and they're sympathetic to those exact people.
I don't know what I love more about the vaccine mandates for cops. The fact that all the cops are going to have to be vaccinated, or the fact that it shakes out the ones who won't get vaccinated.
Oh, and where are the free speech warriors on this, by the way, right? He literally spoke and asked a question to a cop, and then he's pushed out of the subway.
No, he's a libertarian. Those are the people. He's the type of person that they're agitating using his cartoon.
Just like one of those pedantic left-wing Democrat mask shamers.
Authoritarians.
Honestly, like I want to know what other mandates we can impose upon the police to shake out some of the bad apples.
This is a fun exercise, actually.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's good.
The uniforms are pink now, guys.
Right. You got to wear a gay pride flag on your uniform. And speaking of the tons of cops that Ducey was referring to, weight requirement. Sorry, no more donuts.
Which one of these Tucker Carlson ones should we play?
Oh man.
The homeless one is pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Here's Tucker Carlson. This guy's just, unbelievable. Here's Tucker Carlson, owner of at least 3 homes.
Yeah, so the one thing you can't do is expel the junkies, not the homeless. Homeless makes it sound like some sort of protected class of protesters. No, they're junkies. They're people shooting up, breaking into cars to support their habit, selling themselves, pimping out women. They're junkies, okay? And they're on your kid's school lawn. But we can't intervene in that because it's always been that way. Just lower expectations, Karen. In New York City, police have just been ordered not to intervene when they see junkies shooting up on the sidewalk or in a park. Can't get in the way, and you shouldn't, because we've always had junkies in our park. Sam Adams was actually smoking meth on the Boston Common once upon a time.
Pause it for a
Washington,
second.
D.C., the metro...
I think, was it Sam Adams? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that some of our founding fathers were addicted to opium. Yeah, exactly. They were drinking... Hell, Johnny Appleseed was just going around doing growing trees to make hard cider.
Jefferson used opium.
That's what I'm saying. Most of those guys were opioid heads. But continue. I mean, forget the history for a moment, but continue.
Park. Can't get in the way, and you shouldn't, because we've always had junkies in our park. Sam Adams was actually smoking meth on the Boston Common once upon a time. In Washington, D.C., the metro just basically shut down and pulled 60% of its train cars from service. So commuters, the ones who pay for it, are just have to find another way to get to work because the train service isn't working anymore. Just lower your expectations. In fact, they're lucky. In Philadelphia last week, several people on a train, they got on the train, and then they got to watch as a man raped a woman on the train for minutes. Witnesses describe what they saw to Fox 29 in Philadelphia.
This is an interesting tact that the homeless now are just junkies and therefore deserve to be unhoused.
The homeless are responsible for DC's train system not working?
That's right, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Right. I don't know how you make that connection.
Like maybe you should agitate for statehood, infrastructure spending.
Or statehood and infrastructure spending.
Or housing. If you don't want to see it, Tucker, fine.
Same with the injection sites. We should be doing safe injection sites for
without a doubt.
No, because
providing clean needles and injection sites and
but as you
clinics.
say, it's like a discipline. They want this. They want you to suffer for being a junkie, or in his words, or for having for being houseless, for having addiction problems. They want you to suffer, so it disciplines you out of that situation.
They want to forsake you, really.
Right.
MD lawyer on the IM says DC pulled old Metro cars because one train derailed 3 times in the same day. Yeah, but would that have happened if it weren't for all of the unhoused people?
Yeah. What about the clear tragic incident that happened? Clearly, that's all homeless people's fault.
It's also wild that that's his takeaway from the Philadelphia thing, when the real story is like nobody did anything about that. It was just all the bystanders, like literally, it was like a Kitty Genovese moment. People watching this woman get sexually assaulted, and nobody did anything. Tucker makes it like, oh, they had to be subject to this.
Well, the only solution would be like a cop or something like that, instead of like maybe trying to intervene in that person's life before they got to the point where they're trying to rape somebody on a train.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 774 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yeah, I think it is.
Oh, hey, how's it going? This is Connor from your hometown of Worcester, Mass. And
oh, yeah, Connor.
How's it going?
Good. What's happening with the Woe Sox? Any off-season acquisitions?
I have no idea, honestly. Don't follow that at all.
Okay, there you go. Don't hanging around Kelly Square. All right. What's up?
Yeah, Kelly Square looks very different now.
I know it.
So I know you guys have talked about it a little bit. I want to talk about the nurses' strike going on still.
St. Vincent nurses' strike. They have been on strike now for 8 months, I think it is.
Yeah, it's now the longest nurses' strike in Mass history.
And we should just remind people, this is a hospital that was bought several years ago by an outfit from Texas called Tenet. And they have a history of buying Catholic hospitals, using the veneer of these community hospitals, and then really pulling back on services for people because, of course, that's the way they increase their profits. And these St. Vincent nurses went on strike. I think they want a little bit higher pay, but it's mostly understaffing. They're being overworked, and there were increased number of complaints about patient safety, and Tenet completely ignored it.
Well, right, and what nobody has really. I mean, first of all, this seems to be getting like no national attention at all, from what I've seen, which is insane. And
I know, like, Pelosi visited even like a month ago. I think she was there. Warren has been down there. It is surprising that there isn't that much more national attention. But you're only talking about, what is it, like 600 nurses?
Yeah, it was like somewhere between like 600 and 800. But also, this all started in 2018 because on the ballot, one of the questions was about nurse-patient staffing ratios. And so it wasn't just St. Vincent's, it was all the hospitals around here that were saying, hey, we have, 10 patients to each nurse or whatever, and, they just can't take care of them properly. And so they were trying to mandate staffing ratios. And all these hospitals and these healthcare companies spent millions of dollars, putting up billboards and all these TV ads and everything saying, pretty much just lobbying against that, trying to make everybody think it was a bad idea and that the nurses were just, they just want more money, or they just want their day to be easier at work or whatever. They don't want to have to work as hard. It's now this thing where they're just a bunch of lazy nurses, I guess, because they don't want to have to run around to, 50 patients a day and not give them the proper care.
Yeah, I mean, this is happening not just, like you say, not just at St. Vincent's. I mean, this is a real problem with nursing everywhere. I mean, you've got these major hospital conglomerations coming in, conglomerates, I should say, and they are looking to increase their profits. And the way you do that is by cutting on staff and providing less services, same amount of money, providing less services, more profits. Shareholders do better. And we should say, by shareholders, I don't know this for a fact, but I would be willing to bet that every one of those members of the C-suite of Tenet and their board of directors are all, a big part of their compensation is in stock or stock options. And when they hit these certain profit benchmarks, their stock value goes up, and boom, that's the way they do it. And so they don't care about the hospitals. That is almost like their side. Absolutely. That is, they care about. They're running a financial company, and it just so happens that what they're packaging or securitizing ultimately are these businesses that provide care to people when they're sick. But at the end of the day, the only metric they care about is that stock valuation, because that's the way that they walk home with their pockets full of money. And that is in virtually every other industry in our country at this point, but obviously has some more real world impact when you're talking about hospitals.
Oh, and everybody eats up their bullshit, we care about the patients, that's why we want our nurses to come back from strike and everything. So you can say, so they say, oh, we don't have the money to hire, to hire enough nurses to cover these. If we lower the nurse to patient ratio, we need more nurses. So you're going to say, in one breath, you're saying you don't have money to hire enough nurses for that. Meanwhile, you're spending, tens of millions of dollars on billboards and ads and all sorts of stuff to espouse that message.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, it makes sense insofar as they know long term that they don't want their labor costs to be higher because it impacts their profits, which is impacting their stock share. I mean, the bottom line is just like they are. What's the word? Rapacious. What is the word I'm looking for?
Rapacious.
Rapacious, and the greed is just intense, and and I would also add, it's companies like Tenet are really why we don't have an expanded Medicare. Whether you're talking about single payer or whether you're talking about expanded Medicare for different ages, it's companies like that. These people are horrible.
Right, and the CEO of St. Vincent's, I just want to say too, she has really she is just a total ghoul. I mean, the type of shit that she is saying in these press releases and everything is just insane. She's saying, I want to thank the nurses who crossed the picket line for their courage and resilience. I urge the rest of you to cross the picket line.
Scumbags.
Call off the strike now. Oh, she's such a piece of shit. I mean,
well,
it's just brutal.
Go down there and bring him a pizza or honk your horn for me.
Oh, yeah, I've been doing that. Yeah, and I just want to say, too, I'll see you guys at the Boston show.
Love it. Connor, appreciate it, bud. Bye.
All right, have a good one.
All right. Sweet. Wonder if he's going to take Route 9 or take the Pike to the show. I guess we'll ask him next time he calls.
That can be half of the show, is just asking people how they got there.
Dude, anybody take the train from Worcester into here or what? That would actually be a pretty funny show. Listen, we're just going to start. We're going to start first. Who came in on Route 128? What about 93? Okay, and the Pike? What about Route 9? Did anybody come here from Route 1? Who's from the South Shore here? It's been a long time since I've done any performance in Boston. I think the last live performance I did in Boston may have been the 2004 Democratic Convention. Janine and I did stand-up at Jimmy Tingle's show in Davis Square, and Robert Altman shot it for his series that he did. Cynthia Nixon was in it. It was the one about the campaigns. I can't remember what it was called. He did a remake. Yeah. Guess who made it onto the cutting room floor and didn't make it into the show, and who did make it into the show? But they did. They
got shot by Altman.
They sent me some footage. Yeah. It was worth it. Tanner on Tanner. That's right. But it was like the updated one. What else we got here?
Rudy Giuliani.
This is really sad. Rudy Giuliani. This is a guy who gave it all for the Trump people. And they've cast him adrift. Not to mention the fact that he's been banned from Fox. I mean, what does it take to get banned from Fox?
They're worried he's going to cause Dominion to sue them.
Especially when you start from Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
But
pillow guy.
Here he is. He's on the brink, right? I mean, I think we're just the decline. What is it? What does they say? Before the fall comes the video you post to Twitter?
Yeah.
But
before the fall comes the Snapchat filters.
Here it is.
For
Rudy Giuliani heading to the legal bills start to pile up, and your friends all left you, and
so it's time to mix some meds up and like play around on your phone. What's this gadget?
You know, there's when Nixon was really going through it in Watergate, and it was like gonna end.
He's talking to the pictures.
Yeah, there's a point where he started talking to the picture of Kennedy, and this is sort of the devolution of that, I think.
Here is Rudy Giuliani. Oh my God.
Virginia, vote against the man who dishonored our past by selling my bedroom hundreds and hundreds of times to scoundrels in a pay-for-play scheme. In my time, we had a name for men who sold bedrooms for one night. In your time, the name is Terry McAuliffe, and the Clinton flees once and for all.
Was he Spanish
did
at the end?
Abraham Lincoln have it would come from Eastern Europe?
Yeah, I thought he was more like giving a little Cuban flair at the end.
One shot for all. Jeez.
His dentures kind of started to fall out towards the end.
Oh my God.
What grandchild showed him that Snapchat filter? Because I'm surprised if he has any relationship with them.
I'd worry about showing Giuliani stuff like that in his state. Like, it might cause some sort of break.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, he seems to be doing great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Also, Lincoln had a whiny voice. He didn't sound like Spain.
Yes. Have you ever seen Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis? He's no.
We should say that Virginia election is 2 weeks off, and almost less than 2 weeks now, and there's going to be a lot gleaned from that. Some of it will be valid, most of it will not, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's get to this. We talked yesterday about Meghan McCain writing, in quotations, an audiobook.
Speaking an audiobook.
Retelling the time that the millions of people who watched The View saw. How hurt she was.
Yeah, she could have just clipped it for the
audiobook. When Joy Behar said, "I didn't miss you. Zero. I didn't miss you at all." And how horribly hurt she was by that. Because, listen, Meghan McCain is a decent person. She does not like this kind of rancor that exists in our society. Mm-hmm. She is for a more evolved discussion of the issues. She is not. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a second. No, she showed up on Sean Hannity's program.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, here we go. Let's see if Hannity is talking about Vince Foster or whatever it is he's talking about in this.
Exactly what happened to me.
Why didn't you tell the story that your dad encouraged you to take the job? Why?
He loved the show. It's a mainstream show, and I do think it's important that we have to fight the culture war in their spaces because, quite frankly, I think we're losing it. And he thought that they needed a strong conservative. There had been a whole host of Republican and so-called Republican women who claim to be Republican but are not, in my opinion, who had co-hosted the show and failed. And he thought I was up for the job, and I did anything he told me to do. So I did it, and I actually really enjoyed the first year and a half of the show. But like I said, as I grew stronger and more people would come on the show and I would really hold liberal guests' feet to the fire, I felt a lot of backlash both internally and externally at the show. But this shouldn't become as a surprise to you. I mean, you've seen the show. I think anyone who has watched even a clip of
Listen, I used to do the
should not
show.
be surprised by anything I'm saying.
I remember the last time I did the show. I did. The last time I did the show, I was sitting next to Rosie O'Donnell, and it became a screaming match. And Barbara.
Taking shots at Elizabeth Hasselbeck, right? That's the conservative she must be talking about.
Yeah.
She was the OG in this.
Out of the bar.
I wonder if they remember that Donald Trump, the guy that Sean Hannity supported, I think built his career on calling Rosie O'Donnell a pig. Wasn't that? Wasn't that like launched his political career?
That and Obama not being born here were like his big hits.
Right.
Yeah, and if he recalls, his colleague at the time, Megyn Kelly, deigned to ask Donald Trump about said comments at that debate, and that was a big.
I wonder what the conservative culture war means. That she was going on there to be a conservative culture warrior. What would that mean? Like anti-gay marriage, anti-woman's right to choose. What are the other culture wars that we're fighting right here? I mean. And she's pissed off because somebody said we didn't miss you.
Yeah.
But she was there to be strong.
And the backlash that she got
culture
externally, meaning people, the audience critiquing your performance. Like, doesn't that kind of usually have most people, if they're getting criticized by both their colleagues and the audience, if they're working on a show, to reflect?
Well, fine. Don't reflect. But you're going on to be a culture warrior. Frankly, for me, I like my culture warriors who are not so snowflakey that they can't handle can't handle any pushback. Wait a second. You know who else agrees with me about the snowflakey? Don't we have a tweet about the snowflakey? Bradley, do we have that tweet from yesterday? You know, there are some people who agree with me, I want to say, about like when you can't handle that your opinion isn't accepted and you're getting a little bit of pushback, maybe you shouldn't be so snowflakey. Will you put up this tweet as somebody who agrees with me on this? Oh, Bernie supporters are such snowflakes.
Yeah, she also blocked me.
We've received a complaint against your account for following content. Oh, I guess.
Bernie supporters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slight criticism. She's complaining about the fact that her account has given slight criticism. Bernie supporters are such snowflakes. Laugh my effing ass off. You know what's really funny? A couple years later, she writes an entire audiobook about how she was upset about getting critiqued.
I don't understand. Like, she's a strong culture warrior, but also very fragile. And
incredibly so.
I'm a strong, fragile culture warrior.
I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how you commodify conservative. It is like, it's like you're wrestling for the victim position.
Dude, I have been saying for 15 years, if you take away the aggrievement, there is literally just either an empty suit or a 5 o'clock shadow or, you know, a pantsuit that's left.
Yes, and a voice echoing in the distance, my father.
Jay Chivone says the famous Kinney Genoese myth was contrived by Abe Rosenthal, who used the false claim that no one responded to her screams to elbow his way to the position of executive editor at the Times. I seem to remember something along those lines, yes. Let's do a moment. This is a very brief moment of Zen. We'll put a little bit of... oh, no, we'll do this one. This is a very brief moment of Zen. Would you put up that screenshot number 13, please, for today? That is the one that we're going to...
Breathe in.
Breathe in, breathe out. We're going to do a little counting today, shall we? Let's look at...
It's like counting sheep, except in this instance, we are counting vaccine-related videos on Jimmy Dore's page.
Yeah, exactly. This is just a random one we did. Took a couple weeks.
Selection of 18?
Yeah, I just chose whatever would fit on the count.
You also probably could have circled the Fauci one.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then firing 70,000 healthcare workers, of course, is also about a vaccine mandate. So I don't know. We call that 11.
So that's 6 across, 4 down. So that's 24 videos.
Full half of those videos. And that's not even including the Fauci's.
So that's half.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I remember there was a time where people would call in and defend that guy. Not so much anymore.
You can make all the disclaimers about, hey, you know, you probably want to get vaxxed yourself, but if all of the things you're emphasizing are contrary to that, we know where you're fishing.
Right. There's a difference between showing and telling. right? I could say to my kids, do not hit, and smack them across the face. What message are they going to get?
The climate change is a perfect example of this. You can say, like, I'm not a denier, but I'm always going to emphasize days when it's actually colder than you'd expect, given and also water's great. There's a great precipitation. Nothing to worry about in terms of climate. If you emphasize that every day, but say you trust the science, you're not really trusting the science.
Of course.
Yes, it's, as you say, lying by emphasis. He's also been emphasizing his own personal anecdotal experience by never feeling the same since he got the vaccine. So I think it's even more insidious than like just what he's emphasizing. So.
All right. Let's go to the phones, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Calling from a 952 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name's Tim. I'm from Minneapolis.
Tim from Minneapolis. What's on your mind, Tim?
Well, what I wanted to talk about, especially given the context today of the bit of disappointment in terms of how the reconciliation negotiations are going, is kind of taking it away from the national view for people, because I know that when you focus so much on that, the national politics and all that, it's really easy to get discouraged. It's really easy to see just nothing positive happening, just same old gridlock. And over the last year or so, I've tried to get much more involved in local politics and local organizing. And when I look nationally, I kind of try to tune it out a little bit beyond being aware of what's going on and think of what's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul. There's a rent control measure in St. Paul that's on the ballot that has been the product of a fantastic amount of organizing. The local DSA chapter has a great slate of 3 city council members and a mayoral candidate in Minneapolis, which I have high hopes for how the election will go, as well as there's a ballot question that would make it easier to restructure public safety and allow Minneapolis to potentially pass a rent control measure. And that's even just looking at electoral side of things. There's also been some fantastic tenant organizing, a string of local breweries and distilleries unionizing over the last year, that I think what I want to say is, for people who get discouraged at the big things that aren't happening, understand that all of that needs to be looked at in the context of what's happening
locally.
Yeah.
Well, I think I appreciate the call. And it's also a good reminder that you can impact your local politics much more than you can national politics. And always a good idea to join your local DSA. There's another, if you want to get involved in politics, doing it locally is key. And, you also broaden out what you begin to realize, sort of there's a broader range of things that are actually political when you get involved on a local level. Appreciate that call. Let's go to some IMs here. Just another lefty. Biden wanted the Build Back Better bill in its original form. He could convince both Schumer and Pelosi to send it to their respective floors. Once it's voted down in the Senate, they can then blast Manchin and Sinema in the media until they relent. They don't want the bill to pass as it was first presented. I've come to believe that Manchin and Sinema are covering for Biden. That's absurd. What makes you think that Manchin and Sinema getting blasted in the media is going to necessarily move them? I mean, Bernie's written an op-ed in the West Virginia paper. Yeah, I don't think they're covering for Biden. Biden didn't have to. If Biden had said 1.9 trillion from the beginning, that's what it would have been. I just think that take is just wrong. This is not a way of me complimenting Joe Biden. This is a way of saying that, now, there may be things that Biden could do, it seems to me, that could be more forceful with Manchin. I mean, if I was Joe Biden, I would have talked to Merrick Garland and I would go, like, I'm a little concerned about what's going on with this whole West Virginia University thing and this EpiPen stuff. Maybe somebody should start investigating that, Merrick Garland. See how Manchin responds.
It's what Trump would do.
If it's what Lyndon Johnson probably would have done too, frankly. If I was Joe Biden, I would probably get on the phone to a couple of big donors and say, whatever Kristen Sinema is getting from her dark money groups that running all these ads in Arizona, making it seem like she actually is in favor of half the stuff that she's about to kill. I want double the amount of money deployed in Arizona on ads that tell people what's really going on. Frankly, I'm just not, I mean, that's where he is falling down. Left-handed stranger. In hindsight, was there even enough people watching Peacock to justify it? We all go back to more flexible timing now. I cut a video of you saying and it's the best performing video on my tiny channel. First things first. Was there enough people watching Peacock to even justify it? I don't know what the numbers were, but certainly we didn't get enough feedback that it made me feel like we're denying people anything by not being there. But initially, I certainly thought that we would have an opportunity to more people. And yes, the flexible timing will come back, and that is something I'm looking forward to. And my attorneys that we have on staff here at the Majority Report will be cutting you a cease and desist letter on the ums and uhs. That is my trademark. Specifically, it's what my core brand proposition is. And for someone to be monetizing those without me getting a kickback, obviously highly problematic.
Copyright violation.
It is a highly problematic thing to do. The years in which it took me to perfect those so that there was a signature to my presentation, the ums and the ahs. You can't just cut them into a video and walk away with it. It's not the same. It's not the same. Jennifer St. Louis, damn AirPods. Oh, we ended up talking to her. 101 Long Gnomes. Do you think AOC will primary Schumer because of this reconciliation debacle? No.
No.
It's always snowy in Ottawa. I think I speak for everyone. I say F. Rahm Emanuel. I was going to say that of the non-war criminals, he is one of the worst in the modern era. But considering Chicago PD had black sites to interrogate and abuse citizens, I think a case can be made he falls into the war crime group.
A war crime in the war on crime.
What is the Friday fundraising amount we need to hit for the Sam to do the entire Boston show in his masshole accent? I feel like I would have to pay for that.
We'd all be paying for that.
Indeed. Yeah, can't let me do that. Ron Paul's neighbor. Now that you're doing a live show, this means you're qualified to debate Steven Crowder, at least by his standards. Samsonite. Can we improve that part of the ACA? We should have someone like tell Crowder, like, you should go and crash the live Majority Report show.
But he wouldn't do it.
But didn't he say, it sounded like he was like, you're too afraid to go do live shows.
Yeah, but I mean, that was just something to say.
How awesome would it be if he came to crash the show and we just hit a button where all the doors locked
and he couldn't escape.
He can't get out. Honestly, that's
the dream.
Honestly, it's like a fantasy.
You'd have to have the Matt Lauer button.
Hi, Sam. It's Steven Crowder. I just ambushed you. Thank you. Samsonite, can we improve that part of the ACA? I think Biden can act on that alone without the Tea Party Fs. Personally, I spend half my income for that monthly trip. What am I to do? Start looking for Sackler products on the street again? I'm not sure I follow this. Juicy. Did y'all see Cody Johnson's some more news video on Steven Crowder? Amazing. I did see it. I thought it was good. Middle-aged man? I think it's what he called me.
That's...
I mean, I was ready to get offended. I'm like, actually, that's about as
generous.
accurate as, yeah, it's like, it's probably, he could have said middle-aged plus man.
Did he play the clip of you talking about the Larry Elder story? Or why were you included in the video?
I think that was,
Okay, yeah.
There was some brief clip of us, and then, but he referred to me as a middle-aged man. That stuck with me.
People think you're younger than you are.
Yeah, I mean, that's
my friend, my dear friend Zach, I had dinner with him last night. Shout out to Zach, watches the show. He was like, I asked how old you were, and I was like, I said it. He was like, really? I thought he was younger.
Oh, all right.
We love Zach here.
Appreciate
now.
that. That's great. Well, now everybody knows because Cody Johnston had to make it clear that I was a middle-aged man. You know what? It really is painful to both hear yourself referred to in that way and realize probably generous. Probably not only true, but probably true 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, middle-aged. I mean, I feel like when I'm hit 35, that's middle-aged.
No. Middle-aged is 40 plus.
Guess who's not getting dessert today at the commissary? Project Un-F the World. What up, MR crew? I want to say thank you for all the years of levity and hope and helping me to develop my political and historical acumen. Been a regular watcher since 2012. Wow. And a Kiss My Ass Mike Cernovich member since available. Also, we are still very much effed, so keep doing your thing because the world needs it. Thank you. That is much appreciated.
Very sweet.
Late Boomer, Sam, Emma, Matt, and crew, you have some of the best political commentary and interviews on the webs, but I think your focus on Crowder is somewhat puzzling and brings your show down a notch. He's a self-beclowning fool and looks a lot like you're punching down at him often. Why should I care what
Disagree.
Steven Crowder says and does?
People always think this, but like...
He's got millions of viewers.
It's not really for you. We get it. You're good on the Crowder thing, but he's got a lot of influence.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And who's better situated? Honestly.
Plus, it's fun.
And it's fun. Kochek Schumer to Manchin, just the tip, says Sam, soft-collared shtick. Walrus, should Democrats counter Republican gerrymandering with their own gerrymandering? Heard someone on MSNBC discuss this the other day. Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Should Democrats engage in politics if that's what's going on? Val Jean, if a person is hungry, shouldn't they steal food for sustenance? Well, they should actually get it from the government as far as I'm concerned. Or from society.
Yeah,
but yes, in the absence of that, yes, I think that's legit. By the time they finish North Dakota llama. By the time they finish chopping down the infrastructure bill, Schumer is going to come out and say, we've reached a compromise with Manchin and Sinema and have secured enough funding for a roll of duct tape to secure and fix our bridges, particle board for the potholes across our country. Truly a victory. Meghan McCain, a.k.a. the political glass cannon. Aaron, it's not cool. Knicks season starts tonight. Emma and Bradley, what is your predicted finish for them?
75 wins.
I think they're going to regress a little this year, but I think they'll still make the playoffs as a lower seed.
Aaron is not cool says he knows the guy who called in to complain about the moderation, and his YouTube chat ID is infertile neo-gibral. I mean, if that's the case, I can understand why people would say that to him. Aaron is not cool. Firefighters are the same. I've been going to West Side Market for the past 2 years. Big trucks pull up and the food in the store, and none of those guys wear masks. At least they don't have guns. When's the New York show? This is the Boston bias. We've had New York shows, but there could be one. Retcon in Seekonk, Mass. So excited you're coming back to your home state. Front row tickets, baby. Calling from Nebraska. Yay, Nebraska is national news. Fartenberry. People are speculating this video was shot a while back since the corn is still green and not harvested. Oh. The corn was green in the video and not harvested, and we're in October. He could have shot that a long time ago.
Wow. We're gonna have to get Kowalski to confirm that, but that is a hilarious
oh my
mistake.
God.
Yes.
But you might as well just shoot it in front of a giant calendar.
Oh my God, that didn't even occur to me. But yeah,
maybe it was late season. I don't know how corn works.
Well, I don't know how corn works. I know how it works in mid-state New York, and much of that is harvested by now. And that is that. I mean, now that it's pretty green. Pop that up, Bradley. Just quickly. Let's put that video back up for a second. We're going to have Dorsey add this to the clip. Judy Rudiani. Okay. All right, folks.
Hi, this is
now,
Jeff Fortenberry.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. We are adding this clip. Somebody has called in from Nebraska. Now, I can't tell. That corn back there, it doesn't look super green.
No.
It looks a little bit brown on the top and a little bit brown on the bottom.
But that also could be it looks like it's shot maybe in the late afternoon as the sun's about to set, and so there's a little bit of a dusk in the sky.
But
yeah.
But I don't know if he shot this October 18th. Well, look up what the temperature was in Nebraska, October 18th. They look like they're not necessarily, I don't know. It's possible he shot this like in September, because that corn looks a little bit green for October 18th.
So this is Nebraska. Harvest dates range from September 10th to November 25th.
Okay.
A majority of acres are harvested between September 30th and October 30th.
Okay. So it's, we don't know. We don't know. We will get right there. Rob from Albuquerque, spooky. I installed a YouTube comment blocker years ago that blocks all live chat and comments from YouTube. It's great. St. Paul, what's the deal with Reagan? Hope he didn't get canceled. I miss hearing his takes. Reagan and I had a little bit falling out over his assessment of the russet. God, what's that? I can't even remember what the first name of that is. What's the name that yeah.
No one knows except
it's
you.
It's the oldest Roxbury russet.
Okay.
It's the oldest apple in the country. I sent him a couple, and he was disparaging of it, and so it's just, what do you do with a person like that? You've got to take them off their you got to deplatform them.
Yeah.
Cosmo Possum. A friend told me there's a strike going on in the University of Puerto Rico to protest PC 1003, which will force an austerity budget on the university system and make it run at a deficit for the next 5 years. All right, we'll check that out. All right, 5 more of these. Socialist Bear. In the most predictable news ever, Mother Jones is repeating Manchin is considering leaving the party.
It's already poured cold water.
He already said it was BS, but why would he want to leave the Democratic Party? This is the dream for him. He gets to hamper their entire agenda.
Dan from Columbus. Oh, you know what they do. You know what's happening, right?
It's leverage. He's leaking it.
He leaks that, exactly, and then he denies it. Exactly. It is like this. Things could get a lot more worse for you.
Yeah.
Maybe Bernie shouldn't be sending op-eds, and I mean that's what that is.
Yeah.
Dan from Columbus. Prager getting COVID on purpose reminds me when I was 8 and heard pitchers throw harder after Tommy John surgery and wondering why pitchers don't blow out their UCL on purpose. That's funny. Bofa. Sam, just got great seats for the show. Can't wait.
Wait, who wrote that?
Bofa?
These nuts.
Shoot. Didn't pick up on it at all.
You got Michael Tracy there.
I got Michael Tracy. Clown Shoe Mike. Can't believe this YouTube chat call is going on as long as it is. Like Kaufman levels here.
Is it incredible?
Can y'all give me some dating advice? I think Medicare age should be lowered to age to 50, but this is absolute monster. I'm dating only... this absolute monster I'm dating only wants it lowered to 50 and a half. Ryan Cole. Did Tucker want Rush Limbaugh to suffer because he was a junkie, or is it only bad when it's the poorest of the poor is dealing with illness of addiction? Of course. Nicole from Buffalo, between chat policy caller and anti-vegan caller, wanted Emma to commit to not praising veganism anymore. You've been getting some really funny, weird new types of guys calling in lately. Yeah, indeed. Two more. Fierce Deity. I know a guy who says we were raised JFK Democrat is his version of Friedman's old lefty from Feldman's all lefty from way back before talking about why he likes Trump.
But if somebody's a Kennedy fan, you can JFK pill them about the assassination. Mm-hmm. That's a road to radicalization right there that I followed myself.
Oh, that is right. Yeah.
Evan Flo is the final IM of the day. Why are the police so worried about a vaccine mandate that's caused less than a 1% unemployment rate? The odds of losing your job over it seem pretty low. Why are they living in fear? People on Facebook talk about not wanting to get the vaccine. I like to show them winnercircle.art, a site that hosts a mosaic made up of posts from the Herman Cain Award subreddit. Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job today. Emma's here tomorrow. I am back on Friday. See you then.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow